Hello, everyone. Andrew here, and I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I want to talk to you about a book that I just recently read. And, my channel is predominantly about real estate, and we talk about investing in real estate practices, great for real estate agents to listen to, or also someone that's looking to buy or sell a home, or anyone that's just interested in any type of real estate in general. But I'm also a firm believer in that you've always got to be constantly improving yourself. And one of the things that you can do to improve yourself is gaining knowledge on different subjects. And so I've talked about before, one of my favorite authors is Napoleon Hill. And most people know him for a book that he wrote, Think and Grow Rich, which I highly recommend. I really like that book. I reread that one over and over, and it just seems to me like every time I get something different from it. And he wrote another book that not too many people know about. And I'll kind of explain the backstory on why too many people know about this book. But it's very interesting because as I've read it a couple of times now, the same thing is happening. It seems to me like I read different passages of it, and they kind of, for lack of a better way of saying it, speak to me in a different way each time that I read it. And I really feel like what's happening is I'm getting what I need at the time I need to get it. And so sharing this with you today was something I felt I needed to do. Like I said, this is predominantly a real estate channel, but also just a channel about improving your life as well. So the book that I'm talking about that he wrote was called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And it's to sum it up in real simply, it's an interview that he did with the devil and what he would ask the devil if he had a chance to ask the devil. And it's written as if he actually sat down and had a conversation with the devil. Now, there's been a couple of different schools of thoughts on it. Some people say it's strictly imaginatory and that he just imagined this conversation with the devil. Other people say that he literally went into almost like a trance and had a conversation with the devil. So it was quite controversial at the time, which is the reason that it didn't get published right away. It was actually written in 1938. He wrote it 1 year after his very famous book, Think and Grow Rich, was published. But his wife convinced him that it was too controversial, that having this conversation with the devil was way too controversial, and just convinced him not to publish this book. And it basically stayed with, after he passed away, his wife had possession of it. And then after his wife passed away, another person got possession of it. And that person then ultimately decided to have it revised. So it's kind of interesting. It's got some revisions. So it tells you a little bit more about how it pertains to today, but then had it published in 2011. And that's why you don't see nearly as much work about it, even though it's the same age as Think and Grow Rich. It wasn't published until 2011. It was kind of kept under wraps because of that, because it had the controversial subject. Now, the other thing, and I'm sorry, I just need a little bit of coffee here. The other things that some people speculate is that this is a conversation between Napoleon Hill and his subconscious mind, because some people believe in an infinite intelligence, which is actually something that I believe in, is an infinite intelligence that's able to communicate with us, and that he actually drew upon this from his subconscious mind. In any way you look at it, it's a brilliant book, and there's so much you can get out of it. I'm just going to give you a couple highlights of it today. And again, everybody that reads it, I think, would get again, what they need from it. They would get a different set of information. Like I said, they could read the same thing that other people are reading, but how it applies to their life is going to be different. It could apply to someone who is maybe literally just out of high school or just out of college, and they're going to be moving forward in life and starting a career and starting a family and doing those type of things. It could be someone that's perhaps at a midlife crisis that says, looking back on some of their choices and deciding if these were the choices they should have made and would they make those choices again. It could be for someone who's near retirement time and they've decided what they're going to do for the golden years of their life. So it can really be for anyone. Anyone can get a lot of different things from it. So what I want to talk about first is one of the things that he talks about right away that he convinced, and it's kind of funny because he talks about how the devil could not tell him any lies. If he asked any questions, the devil had to answer it truthfully. And one of the things that he speaks of right away is that the devil realizes that most people live their life from a point of fear. They're afraid of something. And in the devil's words, he's able to capitalize on that because most people are living from a basis of fear. And that's how most people are living their life. You can either live your life from a basis of fear or from faith. And if you have faith, and if you start having faith in yourself and what you can do, you're able to then overcome those fears. Many people, unfortunately, have regrets of something they never did. And the reason they never did it was the fear of what the outcome could be if it didn't turn out their way. They had a fear of the outcomes of it. So they never did things. There's people that wanted to start a business and they never did, or they wanted to take a certain trip and they never did. There's a certain fear in everything, and so many people live their life based on fear rather than on faith. If you start having faith, and when I talk about in faith, I mean faith in yourself. If you have faith in yourself, all of a sudden all the fears that you had are going to start disappearing because you have faith in yourself that you can do things. And too many people live from fear rather than faith. One of the quotes I read right away that I thought was really hit me is, your only limitation is the one you set up in your own mind. So when you're thinking about something, oftentimes you'll literally talk yourself out of it because of a limitation. Well, I can't do this because of this or because of that. And it's really not true, but you've put it in your mind. You have put it in there and you held on to that fear that you couldn't do something. So most people never even attempt to do things. I think of myself as fortunate because I have attempted a lot of things. I actually own my own real estate company, and I've been in business for over 10 years now. And a lot of people told me I was crazy when I first started out on my own. And there was a fear of the unknown of, could you do this or not? But I had the faith in myself that we could do this. And again, went out on our own, and it's been absolutely great. So that's one of those things where, unfortunately, some people have a fear. There's always something they wanted to do, but they had a fear of doing it. I talk to a lot of people about, what's the one thing they would really like to do. I remember Brian Tracy saying, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? And a lot of people, almost everyone I've talked to, have had that one thing they really want to do. And the only reason they haven't started doing it is because they have a fear of doing that. So this book really will, sorry, turned it around. This book really will help you, kind of face some of those fears and realize that those limitations that you've set are only limitations you've set in your own mind, and they're not limitations in the real world. So that's kind of the basis of the book. I'm going to go over a couple of the principles that I found very fascinating in there. He had what he called 7 spiritual principles that basically will help you take control of your life. So no matter what it is, whether it's a business thing, a personal thing, whatever it is, once you're able to kind of look at these 7 spiritual principles and apply them to your life, you can make incredible changes, and you can make incredible changes in a really short amount of time. The first one, and he said this a lot in his book, Think and Grow Rich, and it just has really stuck with me over the years. And it was called the definiteness of purpose, meaning have a goal, choose a goal, and keep moving towards that goal relentlessly. Don't let anything come within you and your goal, whatever that would be. Don't let any outside forces or negative forces within yourself stop you from reaching that goal. And that can apply to anything. Again, whether you're looking at getting started in real estate, whether you're looking at starting another type of business, no matter what it might be, set that goal, make a plan to achieve that goal, and have that definite of purpose. You really have to always be moving towards that goal. I've also heard it called a magnificent obsession, and I really like that one. That really resonated with me because you almost have to get obsessed with what it is you're trying to accomplish. So you have to have that definite of purpose. The second thing he talked about was the mastery over self. And when you can master yourself, mastering yourself is a discipline, and discipline equals freedom. When you've mastered yourself, when you can overcome anything yourself, you now have freedom because you know now you have the freedom to do whatever you need to do to overcome any obstacle. So once you can master yourself, you can really overcome any obstacles. And that's so important because once you've got that goal or that purpose that you have, you're now going to need to master yourself to overcome any obstacles that might be in your way to get to that goal. So, very important. Discipline equals freedom. The other thing was, learning from adversity, which he says, failures are just failures. That's all they are. A failure is just a setback, and you need to overcome that, overcome any of learning from your adversity. So whenever you make a mistake or you have a failure or a perceived failure, because oftentimes when you look back on something, and we'll talk a little bit in a minute about time, but when you look back on something, you'll realize that what you thought was a failure or you thought was a mistake is actually was to your benefit. You learned something from it, whether either to A, not make that mistake again, or B, maybe you learned that really wasn't what was supposed to happen for you. I've done quite a few different things in my life where I've looked back on them now, and at the time I was devastated because they didn't work. But I look at where I am today and I go, well, that's okay that that didn't work, because had that worked, I wouldn't do what I'm doing right now. And again, having started a real estate company and I love doing real estate, I look back on some of the things that I thought were a failure and were devastating to me at the time were not, because I overcome those obstacles. I learned from those obstacles. I learned from the mistakes I made. And most of the time, as I really self-analyze things, they were mistakes I made. It wasn't anything that something did to me or had been done to me. It was really a matter of mistakes I made. So, learning from adversity and learning from your mistakes and realizing that that's all they are. They're just a failure. They're just a mistake. They're not the end of the world. You can keep moving on. The next one was controlling your environmental influence. And what's simply meant by that is controlling who you are in contact with. I've heard it said before that you're going to become the average of the 5 of your friends. So you look at your closest 5 friends and the people that you hang out with, and that's who you're going to end up like. So if you're in a situation right now and all 5 of your friends maybe aren't getting the greatest results, you might want to change your circle. But that's one of the things where you control your environmental influence, because the people around you are really going to influence your thoughts, either positively or negatively, but they are going to influence your thoughts. So it's really important to, control your environmental influence. The next one is time. And what's interesting about time is time has a way of reinforcing things. If you're a constant negative thinker, over time, you're going to continue to think negatively. And the only way to change that is to constructively start thinking positive thoughts, which then over time can become positive thoughts, and you'll automatically become a positive thinker. It's so important about time because you look back on it, and again, time has a way of, when you look back on it, of changing things that maybe one time you thought was a negative, but now over time, as time has passed, you see that's actually a positive. But at the current time, the only thing you have control over is your thoughts and what you're thinking. That's the one thing that right now you have control over. And again, time will make permanent what you're thinking now. So if you're thinking negative thoughts now and you're thinking, oh, there's no way out of my situation or things aren't going to get better, you keep thinking those things, those will self-perpetuate, and that's what will happen. But if right away you just make yourself start thinking positive thoughts, and I know it sounds really like so simple, like, oh, geez, why didn't I think of that before? No, what I mean by that is just make yourself do it. Start looking at the positive side of things and always think positive thoughts, so that when a negative thought comes in, you find a way to drown it out with a positive thought. And over time, those positive thoughts are going to control your future. So time is very important. Your thoughts are very important, because the only thing we have right now is this moment and what we're thinking right now. So start thinking those positive thoughts. You'll look back at a time where literally your life started changing because you started thinking the positive thoughts. You started realizing you could do things. You started realizing that you could reach your goals. You could overcome obstacles. Look back at a time in your life when you did overcome an obstacle. I've been guilty of this myself, where everything looks really bleak. And then I look back and go, yeah, but that one time I was able to do this. and I did that and I overcame it. So I can do that again. If I've done something before, I can do that again. So it's very important that you're using your time to think positive thoughts, because those positive thoughts are what are going to create your future. The other thing is that you have to have harmony in your life. And he says, in order to balance your mental, your spirit, and physical aspects of your life, you must be the main actor in your life. And what that means is, if you want to have harmony in your life, you have to be the one controlling your life. You have to be the main actor in your life. Now, you're going to have a supporting cast. You're going to have, your spouse that's going to be your supporting cast, and you're going to have friends and family that are your supporting cast. But you have to be the main actor. You need to be the one that's going to make the decisions on what's going to happen in your life. That's how you're going to have a harmony in your life, is by you being the main actor, taking control of your life, and you're the one making the decisions in your life. If you want your life to improve, you have to be the one making the decisions for it to improve. Nobody can do that for you. It's one of those type of things where you have to be the one that creates that harmony and is the one in control of your life. So very important. Um, the last one that he says is caution. He says, always act, but always think before you act. So what that means is, you really need to take action on something. You really need to start working towards those goals that you've set for yourself. Always act, and always, though, think before you act on something. Stop and think about it before you do it, but do it. Make sure that you're taking action on your goals, but think about it first to make sure that you're going to get the most positive outcome of it. I always look at something and I think of, okay, if I do this, what's the result going to be of it? And then before I do that, like I said, I think about that before I make that decision to do it. But then I always do something. I always try to come up with what's going to be the best for reaching my goals. What action I take today, is that going to help me reach my goals? So it's really interesting, and that's just kind of the book in a nutshell. It's actually got so much more than that. I mean, it talks about the role of churches and the role of education and how things are happening. And even though it was written in 1938, it um, really talks about what's, like I said, even though he wrote it in 1938, it really applies to what's happening today, because it's almost like timeless information. And I always believe that you're going to get from it what you need to get. So as you read it, certain things are going to really just almost jump off the page at you. And those are the things you're supposed to get. I always recommend, when you're reading any book, like what I always do is I'm writing down notes constantly when I'm reading any book, because I always want to be able to come back to it and reread that part of it again. I'm always writing down notes from it. But you're going to get from the book exactly what you need to get from it. That's what I think is so inspiring about it, is that two people could read the book and get two totally different things from it, because you apply to it as it applies to you. So very interesting. Again, it was Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil. Napoleon Hill's always been one of my favorite authors. And when I found this one, I just really, something said, hey, get that book. And I did. Love it. So I hope that helps you. We'll be back to doing more real estate related videos here, the next couple of videos, but I just kind of want to stop and talk to everyone about, something else other than real estate today, because I think it's really important, again, that you're always improving yourself. So, hey, thanks for listening.